My name is Elena. I'm 32, and I'm a director of corporate travel and logistics. I manage master accounts, vendor contracts, and international movement for thousands of people across 3 continents. I know how a hotel folio is structured before the guest even checks in. I know the fine print of a resort contract the way most people know their own phone number. So, when my parents called after 18 months of total silence and invited me to a quiet mountain retreat to make amends, I should have asked one simple question before I said yes. Who exactly is on the guest manifest? I didn't ask. I drove 3 hours to the Blue Ridge Resort, walked through the heavy oak doors of the lobby, and found 22 members of my extended family already checked into premium suites, ordering private wine tour and $300 massages that they'd started booking before I even pulled off the highway. My father stood in the center of the lobby, arms wide, and said the words I'd spent my whole life earning. "You're taking care of this, right? You owe us this much." He thought he'd cornered me. He hadn't counted on the 2 sentences I was about to whisper to the resort manager, or on what the master account agreement was about to tell the entire family 24 hours later. Welcome back to CalmDrama Stories, where ordinary people face impossible family moments and walk out with their dignity intact. If you've ever been the one expected to pay, to fix, or to stay quiet just to keep the peace, this story is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe, but let me back up a few weeks. I need to tell you who I was the morning the invitation arrived, because that's the version of me they were counting on, and the version I'd already stopped being. I manage travel logistics. I don't own the company, I manage it. I built my way up from an entry-level clerk at a car rental agency in Nashville when I was 19, still wearing a polyester vest and smelling like stale air freshener on the bus home. Assistant at 21. Manager at 24. Regional director at 30. I'm not rich. I have a modest condo, a 401k I never touch, and exactly 1 indulgence when I travel, room service breakfast. Just coffee and sourdough, every single time. My colleagues think it's a quirk. It's not. When you grow up being the one who has to pay for everyone else's luxury, you learn to keep your own tabs small enough to walk away from. That morning, I was in my office reviewing a contract for a chartered flight to Zurich. My phone buzzed. I glanced down and felt something cold settle behind my ribs. 18 months of silence, and there it was. A notification from the group chat I'd been removed from the day I became the family's villain. Family had added me back. It was the little red heart emoji my mother had picked out years ago, back when the chat was for sharing holiday photos and my sister's wedding updates. The chat history was clean. They'd either cleared it, or more likely, they'd had a second group without me the whole time. Mom's message was warm, careful, almost rehearsed. She said she and Dad had been doing a lot of reflecting and wanted to invite me to the Blue Ridge Resort for Dad's 60th birthday. "Just the 4 of us," she wrote, "to start healing." Then a second message, 30 seconds later, with the line that should have told me everything. "Family takes care of family, sweetheart. It's time we remembered that." She said that when I was 22 and Dad needed a cosiner on his truck. She said it when my sister Brooke's first apartment fell through and I quietly paid the deposit. Family takes care of family had always meant one thing in my house: Elena takes care of family. I typed back, "I'll be there." Then I set my phone face down and went back to the Zurich contract, pretending my hands weren't shaking. 2 years ago, my sister Brooke decided she wanted to be a wellness influencer. No business plan, no market study. She wanted $40,000 for a lifestyle retreat in Bali. Mom called on a Sunday. Dad sat beside her, already angry before I'd even answered. They wanted me to fund it. I asked to see the projections. I asked about the liability insurance. Mom's voice went flat. "She's your sister. You don't need a spreadsheet to love your sister." I said no. I'd seen too many people pour savings into dreams with no foundation. And I knew what $40,000 of someone else's debt feels like at 3 a.m. Dad stood up, pointed at the door, and said the thing that closed it for 18 months. "If you won't help this family, you're not part of it." The silence almost broke me. Not because they were right, I knew they weren't, but because I missed being needed. That's the real wound. I had been the family fixer since I was 17. First paycheck went to groceries. Tax refund went to Mom's dental work. When Dad's transmission blew, I paid for the rebuild and lied, telling him it was covered under warranty because I knew he'd never accept a handout from his daughter. I trained them. I taught my parents that my career was a vending machine. Insert guilt, receive check. And when the machine finally said out of order, they didn't troubleshoot it. They unplugged it and walked away. So when Mom's message popped up, I felt the old reflex fire. Go, fix it, pay whatever it costs, make it quiet again. But I also heard the voice of my mentor. Elena, this has ambush written all over it. I told myself I'd be fine. I set one rule, one weekend, civil, no money. I even wrote it on a sticky note and pressed it to my steering wheel. One weekend, then home. The drive took 3 hours. I played no music. My hands stayed at 10 and 2. The Blue Ridge Resort sat at the end of a winding mountain road, the kind of place where the lobby smells like cedar and old money. Dad's truck was in the lot, Mom's sedan next to it. Then I saw Aunt Linda's Buick, Uncle Greg's SUV, Brooke's hatchback, 9 cars I recognized. Just the 4 of us, Mom had written. I counted 22 people's worth of vehicles. My stomach dropped. I sat in my car for 2 full minutes, engine off, reading that sticky note. One weekend, then home. I walked inside. The lobby was grand, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. A concierge in a tailored suit checked his screen. Mayfield, your party is already at the wine tasting pavilion. He looked at me with the expression of a man who had been dealing with a large, loud group for hours and was trying very hard to remain professional. He grabbed one itinerary and led me toward the back of the resort. I could hear them before I could see them, my Aunt Linda's unmistakable laugh cutting through the mountain air. I turned the corner and saw the pavilion. 22 people, 3 private wine tour booked, premium cheese boards the size of coffee tables. My cousins Megan and Jake were already half drunk on a reserve vintage that costs $200 a bottle. The resort manager, a man named Marcus whom I'd worked with on several corporate events, was standing near the bar. He caught my eye and gave me a look that translated perfectly. Good luck. Then he leaned closer and whispered, Your father signed the master account agreement to hold the block of rooms, just so you know. We require one for groups over 10. I filed that sentence away. His card was on file. He'd secured the rooms. And yet, I knew the bill wasn't supposed to land on him. Elena, oh sweetheart, look at you. My mother stood up with her arms open. Actual applause broke out. My Uncle Greg whistled. Aunt Linda dabbed her eyes. We wanted it to be a surprise, Mom beamed. The whole family together, just like old times. I sat down. What else do you do when 22 people are watching and a server is pouring a $60 glass of wine before your bag even hits the floor? I sat and I smiled. But my brain was running threat assessment at full speed. Dad was at the center, ordering for the group. Not asking, ordering. He waved the servers over, rattling off additions without looking at the price. 3 more bottles of the reserve, and let's get the tasting menu for everyone. He pulled his wallet out and held his credit card between 2 fingers like a magician, showing the audience a coin. Put it all on the master account, he told Marcus. We're celebrating tonight. I watched him tuck that card back with a little pat. Something was off. My father argues over the price of a gallon of milk. He does not order $200 wine for 22 people. It was a performance. Look how well we're doing, Elena. Look how little we needed you. Except I saw the cracks. I saw the dent in his truck that he still hadn't fixed. I saw Mom's handbag, the one I'd bought her years ago, with a cracked strap held together by a safety pin. They were performing solvency. I just didn't know the price of admission yet. The cut started during the second tour. Aunt Linda leaned in and said, Must be nice, Elena, living in that fancy condo while your parents are going through such a rough patch. I didn't know about a rough patch. Nobody had told me. Brooke added she wouldn't know. She hasn't been around. They'd been talking about me, about my money, about my life, and they'd arrived with a shared understanding. Elena left. Elena has plenty. Elena owes. Aunt Linda delivered the thesis statement. Family doesn't keep score, dear. I pulled my hand back and looked at my drink. sparkling water. The only thing I'd ordered. The contrast was almost funny. 22 people swimming in reserve wine and 5-star luxury, and me with a glass of water, sitting at the end of the table like a designated driver at a bachelor party. Around the 40-minute mark, I excused myself to the spa restroom. I needed a locked door. I saw it on the marble counter, Brooke's phone. The screen was lit, a group chat I wasn't in, resort mission. I didn't plan to look, but the preview text stopped me. Don't tell Elena it's everyone, she won't dare. I picked up the phone. I wasn't angry. I was just confirming the numbers. The full message from Mom read, "Don't tell Elena it's everyone. Once she's there with the family watching, she won't dare say no. She never could handle a scene." Dad replied, "Just make sure she's the one who checks out. I'll handle the ask. Brooke, book the excursions before she gets here. Once there, experienced, she can't exactly unpay for them, lol." And then the one that hit like a bag of gravel. It's not asking for money. It's letting her back into the family. She should be grateful we're giving her this chance. Grateful? They wanted me to be grateful for being tricked into a $20,000 weekend so I could pay off a bank debt they hadn't even bothered to tell me about. I washed my hands. I looked at myself in the mirror. I thought, I know what you're doing. I know what this costs. And for the first time in 15 years, I am not going to pay it. I walked back to that table with the expression I wear when a contract audit fails. Pleasant, unreadable, fully operational. I started asking casual questions. How's the influencer business, Brooke? Oh, the market just wasn't ready, she said, rehearsed. I turned to Dad. How's the contracting business? Still doing the commercial builds? His jaw tightened. Between projects right now, economy's tough. I nodded. I knew the economy meant the bank had called on Thursday. I knew the rough patch was a house on fire, and they were all standing on the lawn pretending the smoke was from a barbecue. The pressure started building. "You really hit a home run, Elena," Uncle Greg said. "You've got more than enough." Every compliment was a brick in a wall they were building around me. They thought I wouldn't climb out because I didn't want to make a scene. But as a logistics director, I knew one thing they'd overlooked. To book 20 rooms, the resort requires a master account agreement. And Marcus, the manager, had already confirmed my father was the primary signer. When Dad leaned in for the kill, "Family takes care of family, right, Elena?" I didn't flinch. I caught Marcus's eye. I leaned in and whispered those 2 sentences. "I am only responsible for my own room and my sparkling water. Please process the master account against the card on file for the agreement." I didn't stay for the final toast. I didn't stay for the ask. I stood up, told them it was good to see them, and walked out. I didn't need to see the look on my father's face when the card was declined. I'd already closed the books on that version of my life. Family takes care of family, and that night, I finally took care of myself. If you've ever been the fixer who finally decided to break the cycle, you're not alone. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more stories about setting boundaries and finding your worth.